What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again with some Masters DFS talk, some guys at each position we're going to go through, some key stats to look at, and I brought on one of the best in the business, Pat Mayo from DraftKings. What's going on, Pat?
What's happening, dude?
You ready to talk some golf?
You know what? It's something that I've become pretty accustomed to doing here over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I had to invest into the Fantasy National thing to kind of get better look at where you're looking at. That thing probably saved me like 50 hours of work when I was looking at that yesterday. But so, what are some of the let's just hop right into it. What are some of the key stats that you're looking at for this week for the Masters?
Well, a stat that combines off the tee and approach at Fantasy National, we call it strokes gained ball striking, and that is going to be my number one stat that I look at because I do think that distance really does matter more than accuracy here since there's no rough around Augusta National. And there is a knowledge, too, that sometimes you're better off being long and in the pine straw as long as you're still on the attacking angle side of the hole rather than just being short and having to hit a 4-iron into everything. A bit of loft on your clubs will save you a lot of problems in terms of getting the ball in the right tier, setting up an easy putt, setting up a makeable putt, or at least setting up a shot or a miss that's not going to lead to a crooked number. So I'm big on distance. I'm big on par 5 scoring and strokes gained ball striking. I think are the three key things you should be looking at, along with course history. A lot of people say that course history doesn't matter. Da-da-da-da. It's all noise. Not true at Augusta. Just go look at the results. It's all I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm always kind of a sucker for course history, and definitely seems like it helps more than other courses. Because I remember I was on Justin Rose last year just because he was so good at the Masters, and then he did really good last year. But another thing that I kind of I looked around and like saw most of the key stats people were talking about, but I didn't really see someone talking about like par 4 scoring for 450 to 500. Is that something to look at? Because there's 5 holes at this course with that 450 to 500 par 4.
Yes and no. The big thing is the winning score, depending on how difficult it plays this year, most of the damage is going to be done on the par 5s. The problem with par 4s is that there's a lot of variance in them, especially on the longer holes. So essentially what you're looking to do to win the Masters is play 1 or 2 under par on the par 4s, play the par 5s in like 9 to 12 under, and then just hope to break even on the par 3s. So par 4 scoring will end up being essential. I just don't know how predictive it is on a week-to-week basis. It's a lot like putting in that sense, because a lot of par 4 scoring is factored on putting. Like if you're really good on 450 to 500 par 4s over a 24-round period, I mean, how many holes is that really? You're approaching up around what? Sometimes there's 2 per course, sometimes there's 5 per course. So it's a relatively short sample and stuff can flip, and it's tied into putting so much that, again, it'll be it's like WAR in baseball, where WAR in baseball isn't really a predictive metric. It will just tell you what happened. It tells the story, and par 4 scoring will tell the story, but I don't know how predictive it is.
All right, yeah. So I was just trying to figure out that makes sense. Though. So those are the key stats to really look at. Let's just go player by player, the range by range. So the first high range, 10,000 plus, is Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, and Tiger Woods. I know that you're big on Jordan Spieth. Do you want to let people know why you kind of like him this week?
Yeah, again, I just kind of talked about that putting can be so capricious week to week. It can flip, and you can become the worst putter in the field can become the best putter in the field in any given week. And when it comes to things like driving distance and par 5 scoring, that's just not true. Wes Bryan's never going to outdrive Bubba Watson. So when I look at Spieth, I say, man, here's the guy with the best ball striking in the field, the best tee to green in the field, one of the best par 5 averages in the field. He does score on par 4s as well, immaculate around the green. And the driving distance isn't horrible. It's above average. And the fact that he's actually gaining strokes off the tee is such a big difference from what he was doing at this time last year. The problem is, guy can't putt anymore. And it's kind of terrifying when you go look at his strokes gained putting numbers. It's just negative, 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 negative. And is that something we know about Jordan Spieth? No, we actually think that he is the best putter in the world. He's just been going through a pretty rough stretch here in 2018. So I will take the guys that get tee to green over the guys that are just hot putters at the moment and just pray that Spieth can putt around field average. If he does that, he's going to win.
Yeah. Do you know if did he putt better at the Houston Open or same?
Oh, no. Oh, God, no. It was another, and the good thing was it was the first time he was on bent, and he did show a few flashes, but he lost 3.5 strokes putting.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
I
it was
was. I
tee to green by
definitely.
a wide margin. And look, he missed the playoff by 3 strokes, and he lost over 3 strokes on the greens. So you make him average, he wins.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Jordan Spieth is the one guy in the 10,000 plus range I'm looking at. I think if you want to pay up for Dustin Johnson, but I think there's just so many guys in the 9,000 range that could perform nearly as well as Dustin Johnson. I don't really want to pay up for them or pay up for him.
The problem is when we look at it is I think that Dustin Johnson is going to come in suspiciously low owned. So if you're talking about like the millionaire maker, if you can get Dustin Johnson around like 10 to 12% owned, he's going to be by far the lowest owned of all the high end guys. So I do think that there is a nice leverage spot on Dustin Johnson. I'll be using way more speed, but I'll probably have around 20% Dustin Johnson in the millionaire maker.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But does that kind of limit your upside? You think if you pay up for him, then you kind of have to take more risk with the lower guys when you pay up for him.
You do, but I think that the pricing's soft enough that you don't really have to sacrifice too much. Of course, you're going to sacrifice some balance and some consistency, but when you're looking at these low end players, you have to think to yourself, hey, what's the upside for these guys? And there are guys in like the high 60s, the low 70s that can top 10 in this tournament, no problem. And if Dustin Johnson wins, and only 10% of the field have him, you're going to need the winner somewhere. And if you can get a guy that's that low owned and does win, you just box out the field by a massive range, and then you have to worry if Pat Perez beats whoever's in Matt Kuchar, and that could definitely happen.
Yeah, so for Justin Thomas and Tiger Woods, you're not really going that high weight on them, right?
I'm not. No, I'm only playing 20 lineups, so I probably won't have any of them, and I won't have any Rory either.
Yeah, the guy that I'm. Let's just get into that. But the guy that I'm really looking at is I think Rory is my favorite, honestly, for this tournament. I don't know. He just looked when I was watching him at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He just looked like he was on like his form was like I don't know insane that last round. He just like couldn't miss a shot, and I think that I feel like he's finally getting a little bit of his motivation back with people kind of calling him out a little bit of a narrative there with Jason Day saying that he has like no desire to win whatever anymore. And with Tiger back, with kind of the spotlight back off Rory, with him not playing as well, I think that kind of I don't know can light a fire under him a little bit. And the stats are pretty good. He has like all the numbers and the statistics and all that stuff to back up for this game. First in driving distance over the last like 50 rounds, 7th tee to green, 8th ball striking. He has some solid finishes here. You said that he kind of like backed his way into the top 10 finishes here the last couple of years, though.
Yeah, so he has 4 straight top 10s, and each of those 4 he was never in contention to win once. And the reason he won Arnold Palmer, he wasn't particularly great off the tee. He was, above average with his irons. He was pretty good around the greens. He gained 10 strokes putting. He lapped the field on the greens. And yeah, if he does that again, he's definitely going to win. But the rest of his game, like on a shorter sample, when you look back at Valspar and Honda, and maybe those aren't great courses to look at solely because those aren't big driver courses like Arnold Palmer was and the Masters is going to be. But even at Genesis, he was positive in every strokes gained category and came 20th. Like he's not excelling on the same page in every single stat like you would want him to see. And I think that people are really fired up for Rory right now. I prefer him at the U.S. Open this year over the Masters. I think he's an easy fade for me.
You think he's going to be highly owned this week?
I don't know if he's going to be. I do. It's really tough to gauge, solely because I know Justin Rose is probably going to be the highest owned player, along with probably Jordan Spieth now. He wasn't going to be. He was going to be like the lowest owned of those guys. Then all of a sudden, boom, he's the favorite again, and everyone's all over him. But like, I think that you're going to see Rory with a higher ownership than Day, potentially double the ownership of Rahm, almost triple the ownership of Fowler. So I'd almost rather diversify my portfolio of picks and take those guys instead. Not necessarily Fowler, but Day and Rahm for sure.
Yeah, so Jon Rahm's another guy that I really like based on all the stats that I did for because he has all the same things like 11th tee to green, 12th ball striking, really good driving distance, and 9th par 5 scoring. And he's pretty much like a watered down version of Dustin Johnson, isn't he?
Yeah, so if you can figure out a way how to fit those two guys in your lineup, then you're starting to look pretty good. If you do that, you have an average remaining salary of just over $7,300. And I don't think that's a bad build. That's a contrarian build. Not very many people are going to have that build. And you can almost stack similar players from down the list. You can fit in Bryson DeChambeau. You can fit in Pat Perez. You can fit in, I mean, Adam Hadwin's not really the same type of player, but they're all players that tend to play well at Riviera, which is something that I'm looking at. Xander Schauffele is another one. Gary Woodland, just this. Mm-hmm. Take out Hadwin from that one. Just go. You can go with the bomber stack and just pray that the bombers are the ones who are going to show up. And if you can get Dustin, like I said, like 12%, Rahm at 10%, you can go with super chalky down at the bottom, especially if you leave like $300 on the table.
Yeah, I like that build up. So you got Justin Rose probably in that. The three guys I have listed for the 9,000 range is Justin Rose, Jon Rahm, and Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, so I'll go with Day over Rory. Just the sentiment on Day is always down. The only time people ever like Jason Day is the week after he wins. So it's just a nice leverage spot. And he's someone, again, with a great Masters history. He's just not smacking his irons all that well. And he just changed clubs. So maybe that's a bonus for him. He has been the best putter on tour this year. Very consistent, too. But Rose is the play. Everyone's on Rose. He's everyone's pick to win. He's going to be the highest owned. He's going to be super chalky. So you have a decision to make. Either you use Justin Rose and, like, 35 to 50% of your lineups or more, or use 0%. There's no there's no building 3 of 20 lineups with Justin Rose. That doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you probably have to go someone, if you're going GPP, you probably have to go someone like super off the board with Justin Rose if you do that.
You can do a contrarian build at the top. Like if you went Rahm Rose to start, very few people will have that. Day Rose, Dustin Johnson, Justin Rose. Like if you're going to pair him with another high-end guy, you have to make sure it's going to be one of the lower-owned guys because I wouldn't say the majority, but I bet you 15 to 20% of lineups begin their roster construction with Spieth and Rose. That's their 1 and 2 players because it allows you to build a pretty balanced lineup, and it's super easy to make, and they're the 2 favorites.
Yeah, I agree with that. So for that, let's go down to the 8,000 range. So for the top guy on my list, I have Paul Casey. It seems like everyone loves Paul Casey this week. He kind of checks the boxes for like each stat. And super good course history here. 6th, T4th, and then T6. Last 3 years, 2nd in ball striking. So Paul Casey, is he a guy for you?
No. I've made the decision to not play Paul Casey. I do agree that he is one of the better plays on the board. If you're playing a cash game lineup, starting your roster, Rose, Casey is the way to go. And even hell, throw Sergio in there too. And you're off to a pretty solid start and have a ton of money left over. But it's just a game theory thing for me. He'll be top 5 in ownership. There are nice pivots in this region, and where I'm using a lot of Spieth and I'm using a lot of Dustin and a lot of Day and Rahm, this mid $8,000 area, I only have so many shots to take with it, and I am choosing to spend my ammo on Sergio and Tommy Fleetwood, only because I know they're going to come in way under-owned compared to Casey and Bubba in that range, and I won't need as many shares to be overweight to the field.
What makes you like Tommy Fleetwood? Just the ownership part?
No, I mean, the 2 guys are exactly the same. Tommy Fleetwood's one of the best ball strikers on earth. He just has trouble putting from time to time. But if you go back outside of Spieth and look at all the previous Master winners, at least recently, none of them were good putters. They just kept, like Sergio's a terrible putter, and he won last year. Fleetwood and Sergio are essentially the same player. Fleetwood's just 15 years younger. Fleetwood's an excellent player. He was everyone's value pick to win this 6 weeks ago, and nothing's really changed except his putter went cold, and that can flip on a moment's notice. He played well here last year too, and the ownership does play a lot into it because I don't see the public going in on him, and there are so many higher owned guys in this range that if Fleetwood beats Casey or Fleetwood beats Bubba, then you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, another guy that I'd listed was Hideki Matsuyama. You think he'll be highly owned too in this field?
Tough to say. I think that sharper people are on him, but there is the lingering concern that he's still suffering from a wrist injury. He returned at API and did not play well, made the cut, and gained an amazing 6 strokes around the green. That's never good, though. That means you're not hitting greens in regulation when you have to rely and gain so many strokes with your short game. So the driving and irons were off. He didn't get out of his pod at the match play, and that's all we've seen of him. So in the $8,400 area, if he's going to be the same price as Sergio and Fleetwood, I'm good with a Hideki fade. It's almost like when you look at Henrik Stenson, he's $7,800. You know he's going to be popular. He's $700 underpriced, but I don't think that Stenson's going to win. Therefore, I'm not going to take him. And I kind of feel the same way about Hideki this time around. I don't think he's going to win, so 0 shares for me. Taking too many guys is you're just paying the rake at that point for everyone else. You need to be able to concentrate your core, and you need to be able to be wrong. If you're right on everything, you win $1 million. If you're the second most right on everything, you win $100,000. After that, taking all the chalkier guys or distributing around everyone doesn't make any sense. If your guys hit, you want to win.
Yeah, so is there anyone else in the 8,000 range? Adam Scott was the last guy I had listed on mine.
Yeah, I love Adam Scott. I made him my one-and-done pick. I bet him to win $8,000. Hasn't missed a cut here since 2010, former winner. And I just talked about, tee to green, ball striking. He's top 10 in both. He just can't putt. And I'm not too concerned about guys that can't putt this week.
Yeah, and so, all right, those are the 8,000 range. 7,000 range, you mentioned Stenson probably, so he's more of a cash game play for you then?
No, he's just not a play.
Fade him? All right.
I'm fading Louis and Stenson. They're both going to be fairly popular just based on Stenson has a lot of top 20s at the Masters over his career. He's 41 and has no top 10s. He has a terrible short game. He hits a 3-wood off the tee instead of driver. He just puts himself in very precarious situations, and if he doesn't hit every green in regulation, he's in a lot of trouble. A lot like Martin Keimer has been at this tournament in the past. Like when you don't have a great short game, you open yourself up to a lot of bogeys if you're not draining putts. So in that range, I prefer Hatton with some mini shares. This is more where I'm diversifying. The farther I go down the list, the more shots I'm willing to take because I don't need to be massively overweight like I do at the top end and really pick and choose. So I like Hatton. I like Poulter actually coming in, and I like Xander Schauffele and Brian Harman.
All right, so what about Francesco Molinari? You like him?
No, of course not. I never liked Francesco. The guy hits the ball like 170 off the tee.
All right. What about Mr. Hoffman? I like him a lot this week.
Yeah, everyone loves Charlie Hoffman. If the Millionaire Maker was just a Thursday tournament, then boom, just put in Ricky Fowler, put in Charlie Hoffman. Unfortunately, it lasts 4 days. When you get down to this level, you have to fade some chalk. You really do. It only makes sense. And I have Hoffman projected to be one of the highest owned guys in this low $7,000 area. And I'm in on Adam Hadwin, who I also project to be fairly chalky, so I can't have both of them, if that makes any sense. The other chalky guy from down in this region is going to be Brennan Steele at $6,900. So I'll be fading both of those guys, going with Hadwin, and also some shares of Ryan Moore as well.
Yeah, Ryan Moore is another guy that popped in the stats that I had. And for the cheap...
inside info of the course tells me that Ryan Moore looked atrocious yesterday, but I'll try to block that out of my mind.
It's probably they're just feeding information that might be fake, though, for you.
Yeah.
What about Kevin Chappell? Is that how you say his name? Kevin Chappell?
Yeah, Kevin Chappell, he withdrew from the match play with a back injury, so I think that's going to suppress his ownership a little bit. I'm in on him. I know a lot of people who are in on him. He is the perfect guy to stack up with that Rahm and DJ stack. He kills it off the tee. He was T7 here last year, and he's another guy. He just can't putt. But apparently he's figured up these greens just a little bit, but right in that range, 6,900, 6,900, 6,900, and they'll probably end up being relatively chalky. Chappell, Pat Perez, and Bryson DeChambeau. DeChambeau, of all the bottom-end guys, rates out the best statistically. And it's going to be very hard to avoid. And if you have the guts, he's probably a good fade based on ownership anyway. I don't care. I bet him to win. I think he's going to play well, so I'm on him.
Yeah, I liked him a lot, too. What odds did you get him at?
80 to 1.
80 to 1? Yeah, he looked really good in the Arnold Palmer, and then really good par 5 scoring. Like you said, he's first in strokes game, par 5.
Yeah, and again, with him, it's all about putting. He's a negative putter on every grass type, but his one win last year came on bent grass. He's 4 times better on bent than he is on Bermuda. He's 7 times better on bent than he is on POA. So, again, like speed. He can just putt around average. He's going to be pretty good. But again, if you're going to use these guys, Chappell, Perez, and DeChambeau, you have to understand that they're going to be chalky, so your build at the top needs to be a little bit more contrarian.
Yeah, so it sounds pretty much Brennan Steele, like you said, mentioned that was the last guy I'd listed. You think he's going to be pretty chalky too, you said?
I do. And listen, he's a fine play. But if I'm going to take some of the other chalkier guys, like I mentioned, I have to make a hard stand against some of the chalk somewhere.
So what do you say the one guy off the board would be? Kyle Stanley popped for me, but he hasn't played here before, or he played back in like 2012 or something.
Yeah, he played in 2012. The year he won the Waste Management Open. I mean, I'm always a sucker for Siwoo, but he's going to be first or last, so you have to understand that going in. Jimmy Walker is somewhat interesting. A very good Masters course history. It was brutal last time out at the Arnold Palmer Invitational display. He was good for 2 days and then sucked. He's dealing with Lyme disease, and he tends to show up for the first 2 rounds and then doesn't do much else since. But he was an elite player in the world at one point, and this is a spot where he's actually had a lot of success. You look back at his past 4 years, 18th, 29th, 38th, 8th. If he's going to be someone who's sub 2% owned, I don't mind that so much.
Yeah, I like that. So that's pretty much it. That's all I have for today.
Okay. Who's your pick to win?
I'm going to go with Rory, even though you're trying to talk me out of him. But
hey, there's enough smart people trying to talk everyone into Rory, so who knows?
You got Spieth winning?
I got Spieth winning, yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Good luck this week.
Yeah, you too. And everyone, go become a member of Fantasy National right now. Because you have to become a member in order to use it. But I mean, hey, this is your first week using it. It does really save you hours of time and gives you more information than you could ever need.
Yeah, I just like the part like when you like think that you like someone and then the stats kind of back it up, like when you make your own custom model, whatever.
Yeah.
Makes you feel good about yourself. All right, but that's it, guys.
It just turns out what you were targeting was wrong to begin with, and it's all a disaster.
Yeah, hopefully not. All right, good luck this week, guys. Good luck to Pat. You can go check him out on the Pat Mayo Experience on DraftKings YouTube. He does golf stuff all the time. I'm a little bit spotty with mine, but good luck, guys. You can drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe. You can turn notifications on with that little bell icon. We'll see you guys here again next week.